Right, we're in the book of James, and we're going to be in chapter 3 and verses 13 and following. If you don't have a Bible and you'd like to get one in your hand, we have some. You can lift your hand up and we'll get you a Bible. And so I trust everybody has one. If you got a phone, look on your phone. James chapter 3, verse 13. Who among you is wise and understanding? Let him show by his good behavior his deeds in gentleness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, do not be arrogant and so lie against the truth. This wisdom is not that which comes down from above, but is earthly, natural, and demonic. So he's going to give like three there's two kinds of wisdom, and one is very earthly, and he even categorizes as demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder in every evil thing. But the wisdom from above is first pure and peaceable, gentle, reasonable, full of mercy and good fruits, unwavering, without hypocrisy. And the seed whose fruit is righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. So he begins this whole thing with a kind of a question. And in this question, he's asking, hey, do you know anybody you're hanging with or in your church or whatever, who among you is wise and understanding? Is there anybody there? So I'm sure that maybe some people will come to your mind, those people are wise and understanding. And but the word wise there is a Greek word called sophos. It means skilled expert. And so basically someone that's wise is a skilled expert in what they believe in or what they're wise in. They should have it down. You know, if you're an engineer, you know what it means to do engineer work, So, and then he said, understanding, who is wise and understanding. The word understanding is this word, it means experienced, having knowledge of an expert. So do you have anybody that is wise, and he's talking about spiritual matters and understanding? Is there anybody like that? And I think when he asks this question, it begs somewhat of a response is, not a lot of people are wise. And there are some that are wise. I think I'm pretty wise. No, I'm just kidding. Sometimes I'm kidding. So, but it's good to know. But we need wisdom, and this in the times that we live in, and then we need knowledge. We need all kinds of help. So, who is that that's experienced and has knowledge? Now, if wisdom is how many of you guys know that wisdom? How we interpret wisdom is is really the interpretation of knowledge, or the way to bring knowledge to somebody. You can have a whole lot of knowledge and know a whole lot of Bible verses and know a whole lot about a whole lot of things, but if you can't teach people, wisdom takes that knowledge and puts it in a form that people can understand it. That's why teachers need to have the gift of teaching. So, but wisdom is the application of knowledge. So if wisdom is the application of knowledge, I don't want to lose here, then understanding is the application of wisdom. In other words, you have wisdom, you know how to give it out, you're unraveling the knowledge, but now you got to have understanding of what it all means. So I'm going to put a plug in for our Bible study, and we're not going to have it next week because I forgot we have a retreat with our men. So not next Saturday. I should have got the date, but the Saturday after. If you want to learn how to do inductive Bible study or go through the book Master Plan of Evangelism, then you come, and then we're going to disperse the group in proper place. Joe is teaching the Master Plan of Evangelism, and I'm going to be teaching inductive Bible study. So that you'll learn how to look at your Bible and use the Strong's, the Vines, and some. And I tell you what, the three best tools a person could have, straight up, bar none, is a Thompson chain reference, a Strong's, and a Vines. You can get that right on your computer. So those of you may want to come with a computer and do it that way. But we're going to dissect the Word and try to get some wisdom. So maybe when you guys are done with Joe and I, you'll walk out with a little more wisdom. So but it is the application of knowledge. Understanding is the application of wisdom. Proverbs 4:7. Who is wise and intelligent? I think the NLT says, if you are wise and understand God's ways, prove it by living an honorable life. Doing good works with humility, that comes from wisdom. And so actually that's the NLT version of verse 13. So basically what wisdom does, it has some things attached to it. And one is it's gentle and it displays good behavior. So if you want to see someone that's wise, they're not going to be foolish in their behavior. In fact, you would look at them and they would be gentle. And now gentleness isn't something like, we got to get this out of the way. Gentleness isn't like some weak mamby-pamby going, I am so gentle and weak and soft. It's like, no, gentleness is power. It's like meekness. It's almost the same as power under control. So when you're gentle, you know how to use your wisdom and use the gifts God's given you in a gentle way. Because don't our kids respond better when we're gentle? Then don't make me do that. You could yell, but if I've watched my wife do that, she's really good at being gentle and instructing the kids, and so. But really, there is something to be said, and wisdom is more palatable if you have a gentle spirit. It's like a lot easier to take in when you're gentle. But he says, who among you has this understanding? Let him show by his good behavior and his deeds in the gentleness of wisdom. Now, that's interesting, that word, the gentleness of wisdom. In other words, referring to wisdom, something maybe just other than a word that has a meaning to it. And if you go through the scriptures, basically you look at wisdom is called in the female her or she. Let me just read to you. Proverbs 1:20, wisdom shouts in the street. She raises her voice in the public square. She raises her voice. Now, so does that mean that that's an actual person? No, it doesn't. But she's in the female gender. Why that is? Because it's so important. Wisdom was there when Jesus and God created the earth. Wisdom was right there with them. So I don't understand how it shakes out. Proverbs 4:7, the beginning of wisdom is this. So you're ready for something really profound. You want to begin to be wise. The beginning of wisdom is acquire wisdom. That makes sense. If you want wisdom, acquire it. Go find it. Read your Bible. Hang with folks that have wisdom. There are some people that are older than you in the Lord that you could probably glean some stuff from. And they could teach you. And I think that's so important. I love the kind of balance that we have in the body. It seems we're fairly balanced, because we got enough old, enough young, enough middle, that we can kind of minister one to another. And that's a very healthy church. In fact, I think we have a really healthy church as it stands right now. And I think everybody can say that. We are blessed with unity like I've never seen before. And all I can just tell you is I thank the Lord for it, because a lot of churches don't get that blessing. Proverbs 5:1, say to wisdom, you are my sister, not you're my brother. So look at wisdom. When they put those emphasis on it, it's like, listen, what does that mean? Proverbs 9:1, wisdom has built her house. In her again. Proverbs 9:10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And I love this one. So how do you want, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So how do you want to get wisdom? First of all, you acquire it. And the second of all is that you fear the Lord. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. If you're fearful of, and it doesn't mean you're afraid of God like this kind of fear, like he's going to snatch you up and spank you and is all the time being punitive to you. No, the fear that we have for our God is that one thing, I fear that I don't please him. I think this is one thing that every believer has in their chemistry. When you got saved, the first thing you wanted to do was to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, soul, and strength, and thy neighbor as thyself. The first thing that I really want to do is just, I wanted God to be happy with me, to please me. There was a song by the Talbot Brothers. Joe might remember this one, but the Talbot Brothers, pleasing you pleases me. And I thought, man, that says it all right there. Boy, if I please you, that sure pleases me. And yeah, this is what we really want to. And the second thing with a person that when you're born again is you want to be a good representation to the lost. I really do fear that. I don't want to be a bad witness to someone out there. Peter says, keep your behavior excellent among the Gentiles. And so this all takes that wisdom and understanding and how we can apply that. Now Solomon said this about wisdom in, of course, Ecclesiastes 1:18. And Solomon has, he's known to be the wisest man ever, probably ever was, and the richest man that ever was. And this guy had everything he wanted, but he wrote a book called Ecclesiastes, and you think the guy lost his marbles because he's so bummed out, like, life, everything's vanity, vanity. But the book is good when you get to the root of it. But he says in Ecclesiastes 1:18, the greater my wisdom, the greater my grief. To increase knowledge only increases sorrow. I thought, that's interesting. So I guess I don't want to get any wiser or I don't want any more knowledge because I don't want to be grieved, But I think what it meant, especially coming from Job in that time, the prophets would gain knowledge by God telling them what's going to happen. For instance, they didn't have the canonized scriptures, and so the prophets were the spokesman for God. So they would come, they go to Israel and say, "Hey, listen, the Assyrian Empire is coming down. It's going to whoop you and take you into bondage." And so that knowledge that prophet had grieved him. He's going to be, because the apocalyptic events that is going to happen even in the future, it grieves people. And I think what happened was they were thinking, man, I got to tell these people, and they're not going to listen, and I'm going to be even more grieved. But they'll be mocked and ridiculed. So I think that's part of what it is. The more knowledge you get, and then you share it with some people, sometimes it's great heartache with it. Have you ever experienced that? You just found some kind of brand new truth in the scriptures, or you came from a seminar, and all of a sudden you go and tell somebody, guess what, God, and you unload on them, and they're going, like, they don't even get it. You're going. So, but I think that's the thing. People, when you are knowing the scriptures and even apocalyptic events, guys, I think people are interested in that right now. A lot of believers who study the last days are sometimes deeply, again, grieved by the revelation they see. We went through the book of Revelation in my Bible study. And I don't know whether we should go through it again here as a body. We're close. We can probably get there in about 6 months. But I thought I kind of like to teach it again. The reason being, every time you teach it, there's a new revelation that has unfolded in Revelation that you couldn't see it maybe a year or two ago. Bible prophecy is changing almost daily. And getting that knowledge in your brain and knowing that, guys, the world as we know it is not going to be around much longer. That's my word. That's God's word. So I want you to be bummed out and say, hey, the guy told us that the world's going to go down. Well, it is, but it's not going to go down without his people kicking and screaming and telling people about Jesus. So so they were grieved at that. And so he tells us again in verse 14, but if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, do not be arrogant and sin against the truth. So notice that the more and more you grow and more in wisdom and knowledge, the more the chance to really exalt yourself and do self-ambition or getting jealous from somebody. One thing that's happening in our world, which is interesting, I wanted to mention this a while back, but every 18 months, we double in knowledge in the world. So 18 months ago, all that was known on Google and on whatever in your books has doubled 18 months ago. And in the next 18 months, it's going to double again. Its knowledge is going to be rampant across the earth. And, guys, I could do a Google study on anything, and you'd think I was a scientist. I can get stats, and not all sites are super safe, but for the most part, if you go on there, you're going to get a lot of wisdom, maybe not wisdom, but a lot of knowledge, but that's how fast it's changing. So I got a phone, I don't know, this is like a something, 6 or 7, heck, I don't even know, and they got probably 22 now, I don't know. And but the phones are changing, the computers are changing, and everything's changing so fast. It would cause your head to spin. But Jesus said in the last days, knowledge will be dispersed in Daniel all over quickly. And I find that we're fulfilling that. So, um, but it tells me that I can this is what I believe God's telling us. We can live a life and be wise, and with our wisdom, walk in humility and gentleness. Humility and gentleness. First of all, don't pray to the Lord, Lord, keep me humble, because that assumes that you're already humble, and you're not. We are just not normally humble, even though we think we're humble. You ever tell someone, man, I'm a pretty humble guy, I'm really gentle? I mean, no. We walk in and out of that selfishness all the time. But do pray that we understand what it means to walk in gentleness and wisdom with humility. Because when you know something, you don't want to be shoving it down someone's throat, but you want to be gentle and informative. And again, some people aren't that way, in fact, how do you deal, not every believer is really soft-spoken, and some of you guys are more outgoing and dramatic, and I get that. But how do you deal with a believer who is loud and abrasive and dramatic, and you're thinking, and it's then, they come into a room, and do you really accept their personality? They say, but basically they'll say, they'll walk into a room, hey bro, how you doing, man? How's life treating you? And it's like those coined phrases, and you're going, well, life's not good sometimes, but God is all the time, But how do you deal with that when people are kind of loud and abrasive? And again, I'm not interpreting their spirituality, but we have those people, right? They're in our family. Everybody's got one. But these questions are not bad in themselves. Or are you hanging in there? Or the one my favorite is, hey, you gained a little bit of weight, didn't you, buddy? Yeah, I just lost some, so I didn't. You look different. Well, of course I look different. I'm 20 years older than the last time you saw me. And they say Terry, and they go, did you marry the right guy? So anyway, but he tells us that bitterness and selfish ambition is not good, and it would really cause us to lie against the truth. Real wisdom, a godly reputation, it kind of exudes wisdom, good behavior, and a good lifestyle. And I think this is where we need to hear this from time to time. You may know this, but we're to live above reproach. Proverbs 3:3-4. But it says in verse 3, and do not let kindness and truth leave you. Don't let it leave you. You can get older in the Lord and get cynical. I meet older believers and they start to get cynical, and they'll watch a young believer come in their presence and go, look at that young buck, he's just all on fire for Jesus. He'll grow up one day and be like me. Like lukewarm. No, I hope not. My prayer is when you come up to me and you're young and you love Jesus, you keep serving him with your young legs and teach us older people how to keep up. But we could teach you some wisdom at the same time. It's like a win-win, guys. It really is. But yeah, so basically when you do this, you will find favor and good repute, the scripture says, in the sight of God and man. And I think that's important. That we have a good report in front of God and men. Luke 2:52, and Jesus kept increasing in wisdom and stature and in favor with God. And so what happened, men were watching Jesus' ministry, his life, and he was coming in more and more favor. Why? Because he was not bitter and jealous and had selfish ambition. But he did it right. Acts 2:46-47, having favor with all the people, the Lord was adding to their number day by day those who were getting saved. Having favor with all people. Romans 14:8, for he who in this way serves Christ is acceptable to God and approved by men. Approved by men. 2 Peter, keep your behavior excellent among the Gentiles. So again, when you have things like pushing in on you, which would be bitter jealousy and selfish ambition, guys, it's not going to work. It really isn't. So he says, if you have bitter jealousy, and I want to go back there, selfish ambition, two things will happen to you, or what you're going to be tempted, is that you will be arrogant and you will lie against the truth. And that's not my word, that's God's word. Bitter jealousy. Your King James calls it envy. The Greek is zelos, and it means excitement of mind, fervor in spirit, the fierceness of indignation, punitive zeal. In other words, bitter jealousy, there's jealousy, and then there's bitter jealousy. When someone absolutely hates someone else, that is really destructive. But let me just say this, that God is a jealous God. Did you know that? In fact, all through Exodus, but in Exodus 20, verse 5, which is many like that, it says God is a jealous God. And I thought, well, we're not supposed to be jealous. I'm not supposed to be jealous of my wife, and say, oh, she's, I don't want her talking to any guy, you know what I mean? Or I shouldn't be. Jealousy on God's level is completely different. God loves you and I so much that he knows what's best for us. And he has a plan. And I would say it would be close to, if not a perfect plan. We don't always walk in that. So if we don't walk in God's will, what happens is we get chastened and spanked. But we're to walk in his will. And so and I just love the whole idea that we're walking in truth and we're walking in wisdom. Psalm 78:58 says, for they provoked him with their high places and arose his jealousy with their graven images. So God was jealous. In fact, it says in Exodus 34:14 that his name is jealous. I mean, could you imagine having a name? Oh, my name's jealous. No, it's God, is what we see. But Paul said something that was interesting. Can I just share with you this? And I understand what Paul's saying. 2 Corinthians 11:2, for I am jealous for you with a godly jealousy. He loved the people that he taught so much that he knew when they were straying off, and he wasn't jealous like, oh, you're serving another God, I'm jealous. No, I'm jealous because I know what's best for you. And that's why I feel I want to draw you back into the fold. And it's so important that we understand that God's jealousy is not like the world's jealousy. The word bitter, bitter jealousy, is like to be harsh or virulent. It means to be really harsh if you're that kind of bitter. Bitter, hostile, extremely severe or harmful in its effects. So we have a God that's jealous, and he is jealous because he knows the perfect plan for us. And so if I go to that point where say, God, are you jealous of what I'm doing? Would God answer that prayer? I'm not saying making up prayers, but I really think God is so in tune that if we ask him, Lord, is this pleasing to you? I think he would flat out tell us, right? Have you guys ever experienced that? I'm sure you have. And so actually, we need to know that God knows what's best for us. You men are jealous for your wife and your children. You love them so much that you want them to be in love with Jesus. Am I right, guys? Those of you are the head of your home. And that that you know what would harm them, and you would do your best to keep them in the middle of what you believe is God's will. So selfish ambition, it's strife, it's a desire to put oneself forward. That's where we see a lot of self-ambition. A lot of times it can happen in the church. Here's the scenario. Let's say a church is growing and they're really having an effect in the community, and people start coming, and there are people that will come with like an idea, or they have an opinion, the way things are, or some sort of plan, and they will come in, and next thing you know, the church is kind of at bitter edge because someone has a different or better plan. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen to Harvest, but it's really, guys, when you have a healthy body moving on, we have to be very careful that we love one another and don't talk ill of one another, and because nothing will break a move of God faster than the tongue, and then deception and division. And I'm so thankful, guys, that God has given us the ability to enjoy each other. We're having soup on Sunday. And by the way, soup on Sunday, here's the deal. I think we'll stay longer if the bowls are bigger. So we're going to have to get bigger bowls and stay a little longer. Everybody kind of ate because they had a little plastic bowl and so we want to get you guys used to hanging together on Sunday, and we'll have bigger bowls for sure. I mean, I don't know about you, but I could eat about 6 of those little bowls, no problem. Um, One thing, a person that has bitter jealousy, can I just share with you an experience what I've seen as earmarks and trademarks of that. Um, a lot of times they need to cut others down at the expense of exalting themselves. And if you find someone just cutting everybody down or every movement down or everything down, guys, that could be a person that exists in bitter jealousy. They can't let things go. You ever found someone like that? They just can't let things go. So it's bicka, 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 on and on and on, bicka, bicka, and you're going, you got to let that go. Um, they tend to hold grudges. Um, they do not have many friends. Why? Because they ran them off. And so people that have bitter jealousy starts to ebb out on other people, and they have a need to be better than others. And so I'm just giving you what I've seen through the years when people are bitter and jealous. That's kind of the temperament of the people. One place, again, selfish ambition shows up is really in a church. And so we like to remedy that. Like if you feel called to be a part of Harvest Chapel and you want to do some new ministry, then we got a toilet bowl brush and a mop, and you clean the bathrooms and you help sweep. Or if you feel led to lead a music ministry, then get your guitar and go in and sing to the 3-year-old or no, the third graders or whatever. But you know, people are wanting to jump in, and but we need our sanctuary swept. You know, we have a lot of needs here, and to me, that kind of blows that self-ambition away. We've had people come in and they wanted to right away be on the worship team and lead worship. And I don't know, Trent knows more about it than I do because I don't head the worship up, but he always tell me, no, not always, but he'd come to me sometimes and say, Tom, they're here just because you're, you know, who you are. You know, I'm nobody, but I know somebody is somebody. And sometimes people come because they think I know that somebody can be a favor for them. No, but so he's got a keen eye on people that will come and just because they want to play music in a church that could get some notoriety. And but we are so blessed. And again, I can't imagine anybody having a team playing as long as our team, especially the two. I mean, Aaron's now, of course, on the team, and Joe, but Matt and Trent been doing it forever. It's like he's up there all the time. He got that head rocking, and he's playing drums, and I think, gosh, that's being faithful in what God has called us to do. And not that we want to get stuck in a rut, but it's nice to have the loyalty we have. I do believe God's going to start raising up more people to help us with worship. I do believe God's got someone else that, if the Lord would tarry, to take this pulpit one day. And I don't want it to be soon. But you have to ask the boss on that, because I don't know when he's going to say, you know, go. But I don't have any inkling or leading there. But we are a body that tries to be as healthy as possible and give opportunities to people, but not just shove people in ministry, because we've done that before too, and that was kind of a disaster. But so notice in verse 16 that where there's jealousy and selfish ambition, there is disorder, one, and every evil thing. And I thought about, what's the word disorder mean? It means that if you see people in conflict and they're not flowing together in unity, guess what? There's disorder. And but then it says, and every evil thing. So I looked up the word every. And it's darn thing said, it means every. It didn't have any like big, I think it's like, it was everything. And when you got bitterness and self-ambition, that is the seedbed for every kind of wicked thing in a church. Trust me, it is, because those are two wicked sins that, if not checked at the door, the church can go down. Selfish ambition and bitter jealousy. And But that when it says every evil thing, that's what it means. Goes about as evil as you can think. I think, well, that's what he's talking about. And we may not see it happen in a church in its completeness, but I don't want to have any evil thing in our church. How about you? So we'll do our best to keep it clean. But the wisdom from above, and he gives 8 things about, as I start to kind of bring this together, but the wisdom from above is first pure. Now notice he said the other wisdom was more earthly, it was natural, it was demonic. And by the way, I need to go back to the demonic part. There is demonic wisdom. Adolf Hitler had a demonic wisdom, and that's how he got to conquer half a part of Europe and do what he did. It was demonic. You know, Stalin was demonic. Idi Amin was demonic. I mean, we've had our share of them, and it was wisdom that caused them to rise to power. Somehow they had this charisma and wisdom, and it was definitely demonic. And I thought, well, what? So if it's not demonic, then what is it, Lord? And I looked at it, and there's the first thing he says, and I need to back up just for a moment. But it says this wisdom doesn't come from above or down from above, but it is, first of all, earthly. And so there's 3 things we see that wisdom is, and I need to get this. But it's earthly. Now, what does it mean to have earthly wisdom? Well, I compare it to the social sciences of the day. Let's say psychology, which is scientific study of the human mind and behavior. So that will be called psychology. And the social sciences over at Purdue or any school, that's what they consist of. Psychiatry is devoted to the diagnosis and prevention and treatment of mental disorders. That's earthly wisdom, and it's not all bad all the time. But if you're going to apply earthly wisdom to someone that's spiritual, you really need to think about that. So, guys, the social sciences, just the fact that we have social sciences that study human behavior from a human's viewpoint, we'll never understand how to take care of people. If you're just weighing on your own insight, it's got to be godly before it can have an effect on someone. And so again, I'm not against all the sciences and all that kind of thing. But psychology and psychiatry, in its really worst form, can really hurt people if it's not done right. Then there's natural wisdom, he said, and that would be not from above. And the Greek word is psychikos, the principle of animal life which men have in common with the brutes. Brutes meaning the animals. It's sensual, it's natural, it's subject to the appetites and the passions that we have in our body. In the late 60s and early 70s, there was a saying, and those of you guys who have been around, is if it feels good, do it. That's exactly what natural wisdom is. If it feels good, I'll do it. And that destroyed a whole generation, which brought us into this next generation where drugs are all consuming. But that would be more natural, kind of like and I don't know a lot about the social sciences, but I picked out some 3 words that might help be of interest to you. One is existentialism. I'm going to give you the real simple version of that, and you'll go, yep, that sounds like that. I've heard of that. But we are born without purpose into a world that makes no sense. That's an existential. So I was not born in the world with no purpose, and I agree the world makes no sense right now. But but each person has the ability to create their own meaning and peace. So that's one of the natural wisdoms. Hey, listen, man, the world's all messed up, you're all messed up, but somewhere you can navigate through this and create your own, I don't know if it'd be reality or whatever. But then there's relativism, and it really basically that boils down to there's no real absolutes. When in Rome, do as the Romans. I mean, there's no absolutes, and we know that this, 1 and 1 is 2. It was that way 6,000 years ago, and it is today. And so, but yeah, the whole idea of relativism is like you be relative to your environment, and then you can adopt that as being your morals. So, and then there's hedonism, and it's the pursuit of pleasure. sensual. It can be self-indulgent, and to just basically to live for pleasure. I remember everybody's waiting for the song. Everybody's waiting for the weekend. That was the big thing, man. You worked hard all week, and you'd wait for the weekend, and you would just party, and you do it all over again. And it's just because life, all it was is living from one pleasure to the next with no goal in mind. So that would be the natural, but the demonic, really, again, I think that's Satan doesn't come to your front door dressed in a red robe and a pitchfork and horns on his head and go, "Mwah! I'm here to deceive you." No, he comes as an angel of light. He comes so that he can really, really fool you. And so demonic wisdom comes in. The Nazi regime had it. Hitler's drive and the knowledge that he had, it really came from hell. So what leads to demonic wisdom? Let me go back to 14. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition, that will lead to demonic wisdom. And that's not good. So, but I love the idea that God has given us the protocol, I guess, or to look at what wisdom really is. Now, the world in America is trying to glean on their own wisdom to have a utopia. I don't want to get into a whole lot of what I see going on, but I can share with you this, that as I've been listening to I hear some people that are talking about what's going on in the global government, what's going on in our world, and it's global, guys, so it's not just here. And I mean, gas prices and everything going way up, but one of the most horrendous assaults against truth that I find is to tell your little one that's in the 3rd grade that if you don't know what gender you are, you need to find out. Truth is truth. A male's a male and a female's a female. And that is the biggest insult to truth. I mean, there's a lot of insults. But when you start bringing kids into it and things, and I can't even imagine, when you're in the 3rd grade and you go up to your teacher and say, I can't tell if I'm a boy or a girl. And they say, well, we need to find it. I would you need to go home to your mom and dad and figure that one out. But what do you do? What do you tell them? Well, son, just look at your plumbing. Or daughter, just look at your plumbing. That's a telltale giveaway that you're probably a male or you're a female. I mean, it's crazy. And that's the biggest, to me, one of the biggest insults on truth ever. That's because truth is truth, and when truth deals with young kids, that's so sad. Gender ID crisis, LGBTQ. Seems like we've got so much wisdom that we're just letting everybody love anybody the way they want to love everybody. Guys, we love those people. Nobody's against it. I know in this church or against anybody that's homosexual at all. We love them. We want them to come and hear the truth. But they can't stay that way, and I don't want them to, because I don't want them to go to hell. Jesus died for that sin. And in their wisdom, they're accepting it all down the pike. It's what we call, I think that's all three of them, earthly, natural, and demonic. The sex slave trade market, that happened because of our wisdom. Losing our moral anchor, rioting with no consequences, and releasing men from prison so that they can get out earlier. This disorder in America has launched every evil thing. And that's where we're at. We've seen every evil thing launched. It hasn't got total root yet, but it's out there. And when it roots in, I pray we'll be out of here. Klaus Schwab thinks he's going to do this great reset. And basically his whole idea is that, well, we're heading toward a one world government and a one world money system, absolutely. And a guy by the name of Klaus Schwab is kind of helping that along, I guess. He thinks he's the World Economic Forum, and he found it. And so anyway, but he said this is what it's going to be like. You'll have nothing and be happy. And I'm thinking, where did that come from? Where did that wisdom come from? That came from hell. But once they do this reset, and this is what they're saying, there's going to be a reset. They will reset everything where the money stops You won't have money. You won't own your house or your car. You'll have nothing, but they will help you, and you will have nothing and be happy with it, because the whole economical system is going to a global. And guys, you can find this anywhere. And I don't want to, I don't want to put alarm on you, but at the same time, guys, we need to know what's going on. I really feel at times that it's on my heart to just to talk about it from time to time, and I'm a little hesitant, not because I don't believe it. It's just because I don't want to offend little ears, when they hear, because when they hear the end of the world, it's like, oh my gosh, there's the end of the world. But not for us, guys. But again, the wisdom, and this is what I like, he says the wisdom from above is pure. That means it has nothing mixed. It's peaceable, it's gentle, and it's reasonable. And I don't know if I hit that really hard in this service, but one thing that we have to be as believers is be reasonable to those who are lost. Like if you encounter someone that's, in the homosexual lifestyle, if you encounter someone that's, that they're just walking in just the depths of sin, we are to come and reason with them and not to bash them and tell them, man, your sin is so bad, you're going to go to hell. I did enough of that when I was first saved. I just told everybody, you don't straighten up, you're going to go to hell. And I've learned to have a little bit of that zeal, kind of calm down. But our faith should be reasonable. And people, when they hear us talk or when we're talking with people, reasonable means that also you're able to defend the faith. You have a reasonable understanding of what it means in Christian. And really, we all need to have a good Christian worldview. And I think that, that bears to say that even our young people need to be continually reminded of the world Christian view that we have. And so, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. In the worldwide globus, this is what they see. Two kinds of people. The elite that have the money and the useful idiots. Those who, that's where it's kind of heading, guys. Scary? Yeah, but is it really? No. Because this tells me that we're on the brink of Christ coming back through the rapture. We got a lot of work to do. And I'm excited about it. There's always that double-edged sword when you hear about what's happening, but there's no doubt, and the world's wisdom has brought it where it's at right now. That's where the world is. It's brought us right where we're at. But it's reasonable, it's full of mercy. And what is mercy? Not getting what you deserve. And what is grace? Getting what you don't deserve. And in good fruits, unwavering without hypocrisy. And here's where I hear a lot of people say, hey man, I'm not going to that church, or no, that guy's or that gal's a hypocrite. And I hear that a lot from people. Church is full of hypocrites, and I'm thinking, yeah, and you would just add one more if you came. But we all are. I don't tend to be a hypocrite, but at times I've done things, and it was like hypocrisy. It wasn't right. And I don't stay in it, so a believer doesn't practice hypocrisy. Every once in a while, he may fall over into it. Anybody say amen to that? Amen. So good. We be honest, because I don't feel so bad now. But the wisdom from above is pure, but it's unwavering, without hypocrisy. And then verse 18, as we close. And the seed whose fruit is righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. I did a funeral here Thursday of a young lady that had come on and off, and she overdosed. And as we had the service, but before the service, the day before we had it, her friend came to Harvest Chapel and wanted me to talk to her about what the funeral would entail. And I gathered that she wasn't a believer, but she's like real close, kind of. And so we began to talk, and she shared everything about her friend. And guys, I'm going to tell you, it was so sad. There's no mom and dad there, and 4 children now don't have their mom. And she was in her 30s, a very pretty young lady. It was so sad. And but anyway, got to talk with this gal that was wanting to put it all together for the funeral. And so we began talking. Then when she left, she was really, really uplifted, I could tell. Well, when she came for the funeral, we did the funeral, and the girls, you girls that do our food, thank you so much, because the people that come see Christ in you and serving. Well, she told me afterwards, man, I can't believe how nice your church is and how nice everybody treats everybody. And they were watching the girls, and Deb had an encounter with her. And it was this like seed that we planted in her. And I was about ready to say, you want to receive Jesus now? I thought, no, I want to wait. It's like fishing. You don't pull up too soon. You don't put the Wabash on it until you know the hook's set, right? So anyway, so she wrote a letter and talked about how much she was impressed about this body. And I just want to tell you, you gals that are again doing all the meals and you're here faithfully, I love you guys so much. And I feel like we're a team when we're here together. And God's given me the gift of funerals. True, and you guys know me. I just do so many of them, and the hardest part of it is when they go into eternity, and I don't know where they stand. I had a good feeling that this young lady did have a relationship with Jesus, and sometimes God, in His infinite love and care, will take people home if they're stuck in a really hard place. So, but the whole idea is that, guys, everybody's watching you. They're watching you at work. I always feel like somebody's watching me. I think that's a song. So I used to think that back in the day when everybody was watching me. So God has been so faithful, guys, and I do believe that He's getting ready to take us home. So we're just learning more and more about how to live this life of faith. So let's all stand, and I'm going to give you the chance